Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome. It is Thursday, January 26th, 2023, on a sunny day today in the Dallas, Texas area. It's supposed to be 52 degrees, and I'm actually on the back porch and I've got my legs in the sun, so it feels nice and warm where the sun is at. So, welcome to everyone, and also happy National Spouses Day. So, happy National Spouses Day to my wife Mindy, and for all of you guys that forgot that it was Happy National Spouses Day, you can wish Happy National Spouses Day to your spouse. I think it's interesting. Ironic, I wasn't aware that it was National Spouses Day until, I don't know, maybe an hour ago. And the topic of the day is how to recognize the traits of the Jezebel spirit. So, interesting, since the majority of marriages struggle with Jezebel and Ahab relationships. And I'll talk a little bit about the Ahab spirit as well at the end. I just couldn't get it all to fit on my post with Facebook, as well as my blog. It's on my blog too at restoredtofreedom.com. So, Breakthrough Tour, go through real quick. January 29th, it's coming up this Sunday night at 9 p.m. doing Eastern, is a worldwide deliverance session. February 18th will be in Houston. Saw some more people signing up for that at the courtyard at the Woodlands in Houston. It's a northern suburb. And then February 26th, March 26th, Worldwide Deliverance Sessions, April 15th and 16th, Merkel, Texas at the Fountain Gate Church, which is west of Abilene, west of Dallas. April 30th, Worldwide Deliverance Session, and then June 10th, be back in Dallas at the Courtyard in Plano. So, topic of the day is how to recognize the traits of the Jezebel spirit. You know, people who operate in the spirit of Jezebel, which is in 1st and 2nd Kings, as well as Revelations 2:18 through 23, have all been hurt and wounded as children and teenagers, and often, by their own parent, by a relative, being exposed to sexual things, being touched sexually, which again, 95% of all those I've taken through sessions, I've done thousands of them, have all been exposed to something sexually prior to marriage that they should not have. A lot of times it's pornography, sometimes it's being touched sexually, could be your own parents, could be your uncle, your aunt, your grandparents, could be your sibling, could be your neighbor, all kinds of people that have been touched or exposed to sexual things that they shouldn't have prior to the age 18, and they have not been able to truly forgive. So when you're not able to truly forgive to get healed, then you'll oftentimes operate in that spirit called Jezebel, because you don't want to get hurt again. So it causes you to want to control your circumstances and not trust anybody else. To get delivered, you need to be honest of the bad behavior. You need to want to be delivered, and then forgive all those who hurt us, repent for the pride and sin, and then command the spirits out. To recognize the spirit in a person, this is what I've done, is I have been connected to people who have Jezebel. And I had some Jezebel traits as well. Most all of us are going to have, some of this. But normally those who have a stronger prevalence of these traits, say they have 65% of them or 75%, you would be able to understand that they are struggling with the Jezebel spirit. And some people would call them narcissist, NPD, narcissist personality disorder. So when we read these characteristics, we just want people to be open. It's kind of like if you were to go see your doctor, your medical doctor, you would read through what you're struggling with, and then he would make a diagnosis so that he could actually, hopefully, help you to get fixed. So the same thing is when we read off these characteristics, if a person's struggling with them, if you're open and honest to hearing what we're saying, you can then deduce that, oh my gosh, maybe I'm struggling with this. Now, it tends to be really challenging for people who struggle with the Jezebel spirit to admit it. Again, I'm shocked and amazed when I see people on social media that will post, oh my gosh, what you're describing is me. I've got that spirit. That just blows me away. I think that would blow away Jesus, because it's such an honesty that you don't see with many people that struggle with that spirit. Most people say, oh, I've got the Ahab spirit, or I have the Leviathan spirit, but oh no, I don't have the Jezebel spirit. And it's just like, really? Most people do. There's some that are very strong Ahabs that wouldn't have much of anything of the Jezebel spirit, and I know some of them. And then there's those that will struggle maybe a little more with the Jezebel spirit, a little less with the Ahab, or a lot more with Ahab, say, and less than with Jezebel. But we have to be honest. We have to be open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through this. I try to do this once every 6 months, maybe once every 4 months. If I was a pastor, I would regularly be preaching messages on this, because people need to hear the truth, and then they can get set free. They can humble themselves before the Lord. They can, they can repent and ask for forgiveness. So I'm going to read through these characteristics, and I posted this again. It's on Facebook. I posted this on YouTube this morning. I posted this on my website, so you guys can see the characteristics. And when you read this, be honest and see if you have any of these. What I'll say is, when you're healed and delivered, when you've forgiven people who've hurt you, repented for your pride and sin, commanded the demons to go, then what happens is that spirit leaves, especially if you command it to go. When I do my interrogation, when I do a session for somebody, I'll call up the top strong men of demonic spirits. And more than half the time, it's Jezebel. And probably 2/3 of the time, it may not be the strong man, but it's definitely there. Leviathan might usurp it, but Jezebel, Leviathan always come together. And they may have legion, they may have some other demonic spirits as well. So, I'm going to read through this list, and you just listen for it, and then you can deduce whether you have it or not. But here we go. First of all, they're going to be controlling. They've got to control everything. They're kind of like, you call them control freaks. They got to control everything because they're in fear, because that's how they got Jezebel, is something fearful came upon them. But they're in fear that if they don't control all their circumstances, that something bad might happen, like something that bad that did happen to them when they were growing up. Again, they could have been hurt and wounded by a father, by a mother, could have been by a stranger, could have been by a person that was a babysitter, could be, again, 95% of us have been sexually violated in some way. But it will cause you to be very controlling. And you'll hear a lot of demonic spirits, a lot of thoughts from demonic spirits every day, like thousands of thoughts telling you, you better make sure you make all the decisions. You can't let somebody else decide. Can you imagine how many decisions a person makes over a couple of years? A lot. And if you have a person that struggles with Jezebel, they won't let you make many decisions. They got to make all the calls. And it gets kind of a challenge when you're married to someone that's like that, because it's like, wait a minute, can I make one decision? Can I make a couple of decisions? And oftentimes the decisions that their spouse would make would be wiser than the decision that the demonic spirits in them are telling them to make. So anyway, they're very, very controlling. If you've ever been around a controlling person, it's not fun. It might be, if you're an Ahab, it might make you feel secure initially, but once you get married, once it's been a few months, maybe a year or so, it might start to get annoying because then you can't make any decisions. All right, they're manipulative. They will try to guilt you into doing what they want. Again, it's that demonic spirit again, but they're very manipulative. They always have an ulterior motive. They have an agenda. They have oftentimes an evil intention in their heart. Okay, next, they're anxious and fearful. Some would say they're some of the most anxious and fearful people in the world. They are just they can't make a decision oftentimes because they're afraid they're going to make the wrong decision, and they got to control things and manipulate. They got to lie, lie a lot. So therefore, they're very anxious and fearful that people are going to find out their lies. And if somebody's obviously married to them, they're going to start to see this, could be very quickly, once they say I do. Oftentimes on the dating side, they try to put their best foot forward, but then after you say I do, then it's like, okay, I can take the gloves off now, and I can make you do what I want. And I better make all the decisions, and if you don't give me all the decisions, then I'm going to throw a fit and come against you. So they're oftentimes extremely jealous, extremely jealous. Like you could go to work and have people from the opposite sex, and you're having conversations like you would with colleagues, and it's all on the up and up. I will say nothing that's wrong. And then if you come home and you just discuss, well, hey, Susie said this, and Sally said that, and Jack said this, then it could cause them, because of the demonic spirits, to be very, very jealous. And if they ever see a picture of the person and they are halfway attractive, then they're like, up, you're out there having an affair. You're out there trying to have sex with them. You're like, what? What are you talking about? I work with them. They're married. We are both happily married. And so anyway, they sabotage their relationships because of the extreme jealousy. Now they'll also do this. They will play the role of a victim. And they're really good at it. Really good to make you feel sorry for them. And then that way, that manipulates you into giving them what they want. They'll say, oh my gosh, poor, pitiful me. I've had all these, and again, they would have had some wounds when they grew up, yes. But those wounds might have been 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And yet they're still trying to put that forth to get you to listen to them and maybe give them money and feel sorry for them. I know of one woman that she was like sexually raped when she was a teenager, and then she used that all the way the rest of her life until she died. Like she would initially meet people for the first time, say at church, and say, hey, I just want to let you know that I was raped when I was 15. And the people are like, what? Okay, well, what does it do to you when you're first told that a person tells you that? You're going to feel sorry for them. And that can manipulate you into giving them what they want. But it's an awkward communication starter when you're first meeting a person. It's crazy, some of the things that they'll do to play the victim card. But they love to be a victim because then they can have people feel sorry for them. But they'll use that 20 years later, 30 years later, they'll still be living in that. I know of tons of them, but there's another lady I think she's 50 now or something, and always is poor, pitiful me, poor, pitiful me. And normally it's preying, P-R-E-Y, upon people's heartstrings to give her money when she needs money. And poor, pitiful me, or to give her things that she wants. And it's like, is that who Jesus is? No. We're an overcomer. Yeah, we were victims, most all of us, when we were growing up, but once we've forgiven people for hurting us, repenting for our own sin and our own pride, we command the demons to go. We don't live there anymore. We're no longer the victim. It's not who we are today. It's who maybe we were, but it's like a past, far gone conclusion. It's in our rear view mirror now, and you should hardly think about it anymore. Should be something that, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And then if you do talk about it, you can laugh about it. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. Had knives and glasses thrown at me. Woo, that was crazy. Ah, and you can laugh about it when you're healed and delivered. All right, next. They get angry when you're happy. They're demanding. They're defiant. They're selfish, very selfish. A lot of fruit of the flesh. And again, they could be in the church. They could be your intercessor. They could be the prophet of the house. They could be the pastor, the pastor's wife, the worship leader. They desire to work their way up into positions within the church or ministries. Their pride wants them to do that. So they're sexually impure. There's a sexually impure side. Now they'll do this. They'll act super sexually pure They'll act that way, but then behind closed doors, they could be looking at pornography. Again, 57% of pastors look at pornography on a regular basis, and like 64% of youth pastors look at pornography. So it's growing, it's increasing, and that's a mess. That messes up their relationship with their spouse. There is no intimacy in the marriage, so understand that. But they'll struggle with sexual purity. Now they'll act like the church lady. They may be, I don't know, 60 years old and have gray hair and have no makeup and act like they're super godly. But then behind closed doors, they're doing things sexually that you wouldn't even believe. You'd be like, oh my gosh. And you may even, the Lord may give you dreams of some of the things that they're doing so that you can see who they truly are behind closed doors. But there's always a sexual side to it. They want to feed their sexual desires. And oftentimes they were sexually molested or shown pornography when they're growing up. They just have not been healed from that yet. And they'll oftentimes push if they're dating somebody or whatever, they might push them to have, sexual intercourse before marriage or other things. And then they oftentimes will use sex as a weapon, against their spouse, especially. If the spouse doesn't do what they want, they'll just cut them off. Say, nope, no sex for you for a year or 2 years or 3 years. Of course, they could be so abusive to the spouse emotionally that their spouse doesn't want to have sex. He's like, this is nuts. It's not worth it. So they're a master at lying and half-truths. They have a desire for power and leadership within the church. They want to shut down the true Holy Spirit from operating. They oftentimes have the Kundalini spirit. And if you've ever seen a person that has Kundalini, it's like their neck, it's like they shake their neck back and forth really, really, really fast. I don't want to do it because it's painful, but that spirit on a person, you can see them in church, they look like they're possessed, and what it does is it appeals to their pride. It normally attaches at the base of their spine, works its way up. So that is called the Kundalini spirit. That's the false Holy Spirit. And there's a lot of that in the church. And it's not pure. There's no holiness about it. They're very dominant. They have little to no empathy for their victims. They believe that their victims deserve, because the demons inside their head are telling them that that person's, is trying to stop you from your rising within the church. So therefore, let them have it. And it causes them to spin and twist and cause deep, dark secrets and lies and gossip to be spoken around the church and ministry in order to turn other people away from them. Sound like anybody that you know? Next, they have typically job instability. They may have their own business, but if they have any employees, the employees don't last long, because the employees don't like to be put up with the control and the being talked down to and demeaned, very evil control over them. So, and if they have just a regular job, oftentimes they can't work there very long because they have such a pride level, and they want to believe that they don't have to do certain things, and then they'll end up finally getting caught by someone that is over them saying, you need to go, you need to be fired, we're not going to tolerate you anymore. So oftentimes they will not be able to have job stability because they'll get let go every few months. So they'll mock you and make fun of you, they'll belittle you. They'll act like they're a Christian. They'll act, again, they're a very good actor or actress, but behind closed doors, they're evil. They're wicked. They'll intimidate you. They'll threaten you, just like Jezebel did in 1 Kings and 2 Kings. They'll isolate you from family and friends so that they can control you better. They'll try everything they can to not allow you to have any family or friends on a regular basis, or never get together with them, so they can control you. They do not like to be inconvenienced. So if you change plans at the last minute, no, they can't handle that. That'll blow their minds, because then they can't control it again. They don't like to share. They ruin holidays and birthdays and anniversaries. So if you have anybody that does that on a consistent basis, that could be the Jezebel spirit, because they want them to be the center of attention is the reason why. They are rebellious. They're suspicious of your intentions. They're paranoid. They're very critical, very judgmental. They have no peace. Let that be known. Never. No peace, no peace. That's what Jezebel actually said before she died. When Jehu came to town, and she was mocking Jehu. And then Jehu said, "Hey, anybody up there can throw her out of the window? Please do so." And a couple of eunuchs did. Eunuchs are those that are basically, they were castrated, so they can't make any babies, but they're men that will literally feel castrated if they're in a relationship with Jezebel, because Jezebels are yelling and screaming and controlling, manipulative, and it's hell, and it's horrible. All right, next. They show contempt and disrespect. They oftentimes speak ambiguously so they can deny what they said, or they'll flat out deny what they said or what they did. And you're like, wait a minute, do I have to record everything that you said and did? Because they'll just deny it. You could just have everything, all the proof in the world. You could have them on videotape on your phone of what they said, and they'll deny it. Nope, that wasn't me. I didn't say it. You manipulated it. And you're like, what? That is you, word for word, what you said. They take offense easily, hypersensitive, yet they offend people all day long and expect you to take it. They oftentimes can cuss and curse at their victims in private while acting super godly to the public because their image is everything. They'll accuse you of what they are actually doing. They'll overtalk you so that you cannot talk. And then they'll talk on for hours and hours to wear you down so that they will get their way. They're exhausting. They'll argue about petty things. They'll lie about everything, including petty things. Things they didn't have to lie about. They'll rarely ever admit that they're wrong or apologize. They especially target leaders of ministries or churches to discredit and lie about them to hurt their ministries. They'll oftentimes compete against their own children. Who would do that? Who would do that? Competing against their own children instead of loving them, trying to help them, trying to support them. They'll compete against them. They make everything a competition. It's exhausting. They ruin their relationships with their own children. They want to inflict wounds to their own children so their children will pick up the same demons that they have and pass it on down. They exaggerate everything. They cannot stand it when plans change at the last minute because they cannot control it. They're great at acting like they're a victim to get people to sympathize with them over their true victims. And they'll use social media and have private conversations to gain support and get people to believe the lies about their godly victim. They talk often about exaggerated, grandiose future plans that never happen. They gossip and spread rumors against their victims so they can control them. They need constant validation because of their insecurities. They'll compete against their own spouse on many things, trying to defeat them. They'll act assured, but they're very insecure inside. They act sweet and innocent, but it's fake, as they are mean and bullies, and they bully their victims behind closed doors. They cannot stand to be told no. They feel like they are your personal policeman, and they'll report on you if you don't do what they think you should. They always have drama in their lives and blame others but yet want sympathy. They want sympathy, but they'll blame others and act like they're a victim. They demand you do whatever they tell you. They love to provoke people and push them to get them angry, and then blame them when their victims can no longer stand it. And then they say things back to them in exasperation. They can't stand it if other people love you more than them. They crave attention and adoration. They enjoy starting arguments. They never want anyone to have peace. They'll continue to repeat their false narrative, which is like their version of a story, over and over and over and over again to convince people that their lies are true. And they'll exaggerate things too, going forward. Like I remember one lady who would trigger on her husband. Husband had no choice but to separate. and she was given many, many times to repent and change, and he actually had a ministry, and she refused to. And then she decided, I'm going to go ahead and file for divorce and try to blame the spouse that separated so he could have peace and continue doing ministry while trying to hope that she got healed and delivered. Well, she refused to. And then she ended up filing for divorce. She pushed the divorce through, and then later she changed the false narrative because it didn't fit her narrative of, well, he just abandoned me. And so she just added on, well, he divorced me. Yeah, that sounds a lot better. That's it. Yeah, that's the ticket. And so, later on, that's what she would say is, well, he just abandoned me and divorced me. When she was the one that did it, she wouldn't even come to the, counseling sessions because she wanted to come up with a false narrative, and it wouldn't have looked good. So anyways, that's how ridiculous some of these people are. They come up with a false narrative, and then they'll keep changing. Remember another lady, she is a witch, and she does ministry, and her ex-husband separated, divorced, and received full custody of the kids because she was abusive to the kids. She couldn't even know where the kids were because of such evilness. She even went to jail, and then she acts like she's all sweet and nice. Well, she came up with a false narrative and said that she was abused by her husband. Said that she said she lost one baby, and then she said, well, gee, one baby's not good. Let's say two babies. I lost two babies because of this abuse. Well, then two babies, that wasn't good enough. So then later on she said, I lost three babies. Yes, he abused me so badly, I lost three babies. And the truth was she lost one, but it wasn't because of the abuse. And then over time, I think it was over a couple of years, she expanded it to, the last I heard, it was 17 babies. And people are like, you lost 17 babies? What? And that's like, hey, if one gets me some sympathy and three gets me more, well, then 17 would be even better. I mean, how crazy some of the false narratives and stories that people have Jezebel have. So, isn't that nuts? True story. All right, what else? If there are women that have Jezebel, they will pursue men aggressively. They just do. And the people that have Jezebel have constant chatter from the enemy in their mind, causing them to operate in fear. A lot of times people that have Jezebel are overly concerned with their physical appearance. They're in love with themselves. That's what the true narcissist was. He looked in the river at himself. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm so beautiful, so handsome. So they're in love. They love to be adored and worshipped. If they're a woman, they love to be adored by other men. And they may wear clothes that would draw men's eyes. It could be that they're either revealing, could be that they're really tight, but they will draw men to stare at them. And they like that. They're like, oh, this is great. I've got the attention of men. And men as well can wear clothes that would draw the women to them. So it works both ways. But they love to have the adoration and praise. And I'll say this, women can wear a lot of makeup, or they could wear little makeup. Those that are the very, higher level Jezebels in the church oftentimes won't wear any, so that they would not be accused of being a Jezebel, even though they still can have that spirit within them. They could look like the church lady. They could have gray hair and look, what is it called? Doughty, or whatever it is. Not very attractive and not spend much time on their appearance. So that will throw people off, thinking there's no way that they could be a Jezebel. Can't accuse me because I'm not wearing any makeup. So just because they don't have any or very little, or don't work on their appearance, don't underestimate who they could be. Ask the Lord. Let the Lord show you. All right, they're very secretive to cover up their lies. They hate to be rejected because they were often rejected when they grew up. They want you to spend lots of money on them and believe they deserve the best. And oftentimes, they need money, and they'll drain their victims of money. That's very common. They'll want you to spend tons of money on themselves, and then when you run out, they have no more use for you, then they move on to the next one. They love to portray their lives on social media as, they're very godly. and also to try to get sympathy from people so they can get people to feel sorry for them and give them money. They tell you to do something, but then they'll get mad at you when you don't do it exactly as they would. And then they'll always change up what they said to make sure that they can criticize you. Those who are in relationship with them will oftentimes feel sick to their stomachs as they have to walk on eggshells all the time. On social media, they'll oftentimes target their victims, could be for months, by seeing what you like and what you don't like. So then, when they connect with you, they will become that person that they believe that you want because they've followed you on social media. So, what else? They're unable to truly love. They enjoy playing mind games and stringing you along, playing on your heartstrings and mercy heart. Once they can no longer control you, they'll discard you. Again, Jezebel will only come after people that they can control. You know, they may have their own, I don't know, ministry. They may be a mentor, and they're going to prey, P-R-E-Y, upon those who are hurt and downtrodden and weak. And then they will start to control them. At first, they'll be nice to them, of course. And then little by little, they'll start to control. Until the person finally says, I'm not going to take this control anymore. This is wicked, and I'm going to depart. See ya. And then if you do that, you reject them, then they're really mad. And then they'll start, because they can't control you, going to all of the people that know you. And then they'll spread lies and rumors and gossip about you so that they can have people hate on you. They'll bring in other haters. Flying monkeys is what they call those people that take up their offense. That's what the psychological community call them. And narcissists. All right. They'll isolate you so you won't be able to have other people detect their dark behavior, so no one will listen to your cries for help. They have many secret private conversations with people to lie about you and try to destroy your reputation, to turn them against you. That's not fun. What else? They hate it when you're trying to hold them accountable and you do like a three-way text. Like if you have their pastor and them and you, they hate that because then they can't lie as easily, because then the pastor will see what they said and what they agreed to. I remember that. I did that. And she could not stand it. It's like, quit including pastor on this. I'm like, why? Oh yeah, because you can't lie. It makes it hard. All right. Again, like 90% of these things were the things that I saw in the relationships that I had. All right. They feel that they are superior to the common man or woman's issues. They are above having any issues with themselves or within themselves. They are better than all others. When they see others having conflict and issues, they look down upon them. They'll betray you. They're very disloyal. They'll try and do a lot of works that make them appear good, like the Philistines, like the Pharisees. The Pharisees and the scribes, they did a lot of works. Look at us. Look how great we are. You know, and Jesus was righteously angry at them because he knew their hearts were wicked and evil. Same thing goes with Jezebel. They'll try to do a lot of works to make themselves look and appear good, but they don't really have any good fruit of the Spirit in their lives to those that are closest to them. If they're a man, I had this happen to me. It was at a church, and this guy's a total Jezebel, married to this woman. I believe they're now divorced, and this is like, I don't know, his second marriage, maybe his third, but I went to shake his hand. And you know, when you shake a person's hand, you kind of put your hand up there and they they shake it. This guy tried to break my hand. He tried to grab it as tight as he could. And see my ring? I have my Banker Systems ring on. There's like a logo that it has here. There you go. See the logo? It left an imprint in my fingers. He squeezed my hand so tightly. Why would a person do that? Well, it's because they're very insecure, and they believe by grabbing your hand so tightly that shows that they're in power and they're in control, and that you better give me what I want or I'm going to break your hand off. And it's like, seriously? Seriously? I don't know if women do that. Anyone on here that's a woman that shook a hand of a woman that tried to break your hand or squeeze it really hard? I mean, I know that there's women that are very aggressive, very masculine, that have been hurt and wounded a lot. So, all right, let me go on. They want to stop you from ever speaking about the evil that they do, yet they'll spread rumors all day long about you and lies to get people to turn against you. Nothing you can do will please them. You will never have peace if you're in a relationship with them. They'll accuse oftentimes their victims. Hey, I see some yeses on there. Maybe you've had the grip of death on your hand. They'll accuse their victims. So they abuse people, and then they'll accuse them of being a narcissist or them of being a Jezebel. They'll accuse you of what they are. They want you to submit to them instead of God. This is idolatry. They'll act like they're anointed of God, but they have no anointing. They love their titles, by the way. Love their titles. Call me a prophet, call me a pastor, call me apostle, blank, etc., 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 which oftentimes they've purchased online or they've self-appointed them. Remember one lady, turned out to be a witch. She wanted to call herself an apostle. And I remember we were at this place in New Orleans, and the ministry, and these people were telling me, you're very, apostolic. You're like an apostle. And I'm like, oh no, I'm just a kid from a cornfield. Well, then when they spoke to her, you're prophetic. She's like, well, I'm an apostle. And people are like, what? Excuse me? Who said that? We're not telling you that you are, but yet you want to be called that. So they love their titles. That's because of the pride. That's why. All right. They can also idolize people, like in Hollywood, actors, actresses, singers, and so forth, that are sexy, that are not godly. That would not be a good thing. And if they're a woman, they'll not submit to a godly husband. If they're a man, they will be overly controlling of the wife. They prey upon the mercy hearts of others. They never submit themselves to anyone with authority. They have a double standard. Oh yeah, in fact, I need to click on Facebook. Hold on for 1 second. All right, here we go. To read the rest of this. They have a double standard. And because I noticed this, I saw this with several people, is if they have a phone, you can count on this, that they're doing things they shouldn't be. They're like either looking at pornography on their phone, or they're looking at, at websites they shouldn't be looking at. They're communicating with people that they shouldn't. And they're telling you one thing, but they're doing another. And they're lying. So they will never, ever let you look at their phone or hold your phone, because there's things on there that are incriminating. Yet, they want to see your phone all day long because they don't have any trust. And of course, those who are innocent, like, go ahead, look at my phone. Although you can't trust them. They might, who knows, they might come up with a text to somebody that you didn't text and then try to blame you. Or they might try and delete certain people's phone numbers that they don't trust because they're so jealous. They could be even getting gas and they will not let their phone out of their sight. They got to keep that phone because there's incriminating information on there. What else? They'll drive a wedge between their own children. Now, I've seen this, I guess, more often in women, but I'm sure it can happen with men, but I've seen it a lot with Jezebel women, is that when they have children, they will oftentimes lie and say, do you know that Billy thinks that you are too fat? Oh, Billy said that? Oh, I can't stand Billy. And you're like, yes, now Nellie hates Billy. And they'll do that. And I remember I had one of my better friends that said that his mom did that. And he's like, who would do that? Who would lie and talk? Because I didn't talk to my brother for like 7 years. I'm like, yep. Who would do that? I'm like, a Jezebel would. Because Satan's behind all this. So they want to drive wedge between their own children. And oftentimes, their children will not get along with them, but will get along with a step-parent. If a step-parent comes in and they're a godly person. I saw that as well. What else? Oh, also I noticed this, as they age, they can receive either dementia or Alzheimer's, or it could be a person that's married to a person that gets that as well too. But I've seen that where a person's horrible, evil, mean, Jezebelic, and then later in their life, when they get to their whatever, could be 70s or 80s, they start to have those demons really take over their mind. And at that point, they can't remember anything, and sometimes they soften. They might get a little better when they have no mind left, but also, you could be their caretaker. I've seen this too. When people are caretakers, they get hurt and abused by their, say Jezebel, say it's a mother, their whole lives, and then at the end of the life, they might be in a nursing home, and if they still have part of their mind there, treat them horribly. And I'm just like, my gosh, taking it to the grave, the last breath, to be horrible to their child. It's awful. Okay, then with Jezebel, always comes Leviathan. And I've got a short list here for Leviathan. Leviathan's a spirit of pride, Job 41. Leviathan, again, prideful. Think you're better than someone else. You don't trust anybody. It comes in when you get hurt and wounded, telling you can't trust anybody and that your decisions will be the best because you are the wisest. And so you see a lot of that. They have a false humility within the church. They'll act humble, but they're not. They twist communication in their minds, so that way if you're speaking to them, like I had one lady that said she told her husband, I'm going down to the grocery store to get some groceries. And he thought she said, I'm going down to the bar. And she's like, what? Excuse me? I never said that. He's like, yes, you did. He swore that she said that. So it messes up communication. A person that has Leviathan will hear things that never were spoken, or they will say that they said things that they never said. So it twists a lot of things, a lot of communication. Which is what Leviathan, it's an alligator. Symbolically, you may have dreams of alligators, and that's just the Lord telling you that is the Leviathan spirit. Oftentimes the snake I've seen in dreams with Jezebel that represent that. So, all right. Leviathan will wrap around the spine and twist, giving them back pain and neck pain. Again, when I first started up my healing rooms back at my church in Noblesville, Indiana, back in 2016, the Lord had me take everybody through inner healing and deliverance. We opened up this healing room. We became the busiest healing room in the state of Indiana. We were open a minimum of 4 hours every Saturday from 12 to 4, but it became 12 to 5, sometimes 12 to 6. We ended up starting with one healing room, and we expanded it to something like 5, I think, in our church. And we had people coming in and flying in from all over the place. It was amazing. It was amazing to see. So anyways, the Lord said, take everybody through your healing deliverance. So I did. And so many people that got delivered from Leviathan, they could feel it unwrap from their spine and their neck. A lot of times people have, again, headaches, back pain, neck pain, insomnia. They can't sleep well at night. But it causes them to be tired and drowsy when they read the Bible or Christian books. Oftentimes they have scoliosis or fibromyalgia. They could have Freemasons oftentimes in their bloodline. So a father, grandfather, because of the curses that they make, that pride that comes in, Leviathan typically will affect their children and grandchildren. If they're in Scottish Rite Shriners, all the Shriners have had to pledge their life to serving Satan. So if you know any Shriners, say, why did you make a pledge at the 33rd degree of being a Freemason and saying that you're going to bow down and serve Satan? Because that's exactly what they do. And the Shriners hospitals, sadly, are like the worst. When they end up raising money for the Shriners, the bulk of that money goes back to the actual organization, does not go to the cancer or the hospitals. So you can research that and see it. Eastern Star is for the women, Freemasons. So all that stuff is demonic and evil as all get out. And they're in, again, I've driven around the United States and I've seen "Welcome to our town," and they have a logo of the Freemasons, which is that compass. And I'm just like shaking my head every time. I'm like, my gosh, if people knew how evil and wicked. So I'm just praying the Lord continues to expose this stuff. Again, and then I'll go into Ahab. The Ahab spirit essentially is a person that wants to get along with everybody, the good old boy network. Oftentimes they're in positions, like there could be senior pastors, they could be presidents of companies. They have authority. They oftentimes have lots of money as well. And then they'll end up getting married to Jezebel. You know, and Jezebel and Ahab do their dirty work. Jezebel, well, it says in the Bible that Ahab did more evil in the sight of the Lord than all the other kings prior, because he was stirred up by Jezebel. So, and Jezebel will get Ahab what he wants. He wanted Naboth's vineyard. And so he asked Naboth, "Can I get your vineyard?" Naboth said, "No, you're evil, Ahab. I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to my kids." So then he went back and he pouted and he didn't eat. And he was in his bed chambers. And then Jezebel said, "Why are you so sad? Why are you so sad, Ahab?" He's like, "Well, I can't get Naboth's vineyard." She's like, "What, really? You're the king. I will get it for you." And he's like, "You will? Oh, you're the best, Jesse." Mwah. So what does Jesse do? She comes up with a plan, of course. And the plan is to invite Naboth to a banquet, and at the banquet have these two scoundrels lie and accuse him of coming against God and blaspheming the king. And then they took him outside and stoned him and killed him. And then Ahab got what he wanted. So that's why you see in the majority of marriages today, Jezebel and Ahab. Again, Jezebel can be a man and Ahab can be a woman. So there's a lot of relationships, Jezebel and Ahab. You see it a lot in the church, all over the place. You know, I see it all the time. You could have a pastor who's an Ahab married to a Jezebel wife, or vice versa. It's just everywhere. It's bad. And the Lord's like calling this all out. You know, that's when I first started doing ministry back in 2016. And the Lord said, "Write a book." And I called it Restore to Freedom. And it was about Jezebel and Leviathan and the correlation to Ahab. And it opened up a lot of eyes when people read it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that makes all the sense in the world." So we can't compromise if we're at Ahab. Ahabs tend to feel secure with a spouse that calls the shots, that's very demanding, that's very loud, that's controlling. You know, that goes into like a bull in the china shop, and everybody's afraid, saying, "Oh my gosh." Well, but they get something from that, because I remember I got a change of carpet in my house. We built a new house, and they put the wrong color in, and I was like, I don't care. I think it was blue, actually. Can you imagine blue carpet? I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to get along with people, you know. And then my now ex-wife was like, "I'm going to make some phone calls." And then she did. And she would wear the people down. And finally I said, "Okay, we'll give you the whatever tan." And we're like, "Okay, we'll take that." But there's a lot of things, a lot of benefits that I got, because I'm like, I just don't want to complain. I'd rather just go along with everything. You know, and that's tends to be what a lot of Ahabs are. But I've learned now, when you do ministry, you can't do that. You got to stand up. You got to speak the truth. You know, you may have to confront people who have Jezebel, and they don't like it. But if the Lord speaks to you, you better be more afraid of God than you are of your spouse or other people that have Jezebel. You know, I know that they make a scene and they can go on and on and on and on, and it wears you down. You know, but you got to speak the truth in love, and then disengage, so they don't get you to do that. So anyway, so how do you get delivered from Jezebel? You know, again, lots of people out there exposing Jezebel and or narcissism, but do they have any hope for getting them healed and delivered? No. Majority are like, "Nope, you can't get a narcissist delivered. You can't get them to change." I'm like, really? I'm like, I beg to differ. We've seen thousands and thousands who have around the world. No, it is not easy. Because number one, they have to admit that they have a problem. They have to admit the truth. And number two, they have to forgive those who have hurt them. They have to repent for their pride. You know, they have to repent for their sin and their sexual sin. And then they have to command the demonic spirits to go. So I wrote a book called Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons. And that's encompassed the thousands of sessions that I've done with people. So you can do this on your own. In fact, I just did a talk to a guy who went through this himself. It was like a 25-year-old guy. And he was blown away because he said that he went through the soul wound part of it, and he kept getting the wounds healed. And then he commanded the top demonic spirits to come forward, and he heard the name of the demonic spirit. I think it was Leviathan and Jezebel, and he was like, I couldn't believe it. They actually told me their name. I'm like, yay. I go, that's what they're supposed to do. And then you can interrogate them to see if they have any legal rights left. And if they don't, you command them to go. And if they still have a right, they'll tell you. Before the courts of heaven, they can't lie. And so anyways, it's amazing. You can get yourself healed and delivered. Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons. It's available on paperback, Kindle, and Audible. And I'm the one that does the voice. I read the book to you if you can stand my voice. Or hopefully I don't put you to sleep. You know, those that yell and scream, I'm not a yeller and screamer, so I will never yell and scream in the book. I will read it. And I will not burp or snap my fingers. I'll never forget this. I started doing my audibles of all my books, and whenever I would make a mistake when I was doing the recording, I would snap my fingers, they say, because then it puts a little thing up on the reader, so you know that you made a mistake, and you can go back, and then you can, you know, you correct it, and then you can go back and delete that. Well, there's a couple places I forgot to delete. And this one guy said, are you trying to hypnotize us? And I'm like, what? I'm like, hypnotize? He's like, yeah, there's a snapping. I heard the fingers. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to hypnotize. I forgot to remove that. So anyways, when you get healed and delivered, you can laugh. You can laugh at yourself for making mistakes. So, all right. I think that's it. Yeah, and also if you want a personal session, again, I do, I don't know, 6 to 10 personal sessions a week. And you can email my assistant, Tina, at tinak@restoredtofreedom.com. That's RESTOREDTO freedom.com. And we have several options for inner healing and deliverance, different people and so forth. But you can email her. She can give you the rundown on all that and then get it scheduled. Again, I do them in the morning, I do them in the afternoon, I do them in the evening. So I make it convenient for people's schedules. I know that a lot of times people work, and I hope they work, and then they, you know, want to do a session in the evening. So I make it, I can accommodate that. Again, I'm on Central Time, so it makes it a little bit easier for people on the West Coast, because if they want to do it at, 6 o'clock at night, then it's 8 o'clock my time. So anyways, all right, well, I will let you go. Went over a little bit because it took longer to describe all of the characteristics, but again, the majority of marriages are going to be Jezebel and Ahab. And if we both get healed and delivered, husband and wife, then it could be a wonderful life. And that's the way that it should be, where you really enjoy each other. You want to spend time with each other. You want to laugh with each other. You have intimacy that is pure and godly. And you're for each other, not against. You don't fight and strive and argue. So, all right. See you guys on Facebook and see you on YouTube. Bye-bye.